What is going on, everybody? The Original Mate go back with another shark scale video, and probably the last one for a little bit because I'm getting ready to start my next longer anime, which is going to be Black Clover. But before we get into that, we are going to be talking about the one that I just finished watching, which was Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress. And this was a banger of a show. So the only reason I even had this on my watch list to begin with was I saw a really cool clip from the show that I was like, all right, that was sick. I gotta know what's going on here. So I added it to my watch list a while ago and then came back, watched it, and was just blown away by how much I enjoyed this show. Hopefully, if I get the time to edit this, I can put that clip in. To show you guys the clip I'm talking about, but it was a ton of fun. The way I described it was almost a mix. It's like Attack on Titan, Darling in the Franxx, and Call of Duty Zombies had a child. And I might explain that a little bit more as we get to those points when we're reviewing here. But overall, it was a great show. The fights were so smooth. The story, the fact that they got all that in 12 episodes, and it was a very interesting premise for a show. Nothing super new. Once again, you can definitely, when you watch it, it's made by the same Wit Studio who made, I think, like the first 2 seasons of Attack on Titan. So you can see some similarities between this show and something like Attack on Titan for sure. But it's done, it's so uniquely done that it's a great way to experience that kind of story, post-apocalyptic, humanity's on the brink of destruction type of story. So yeah, anyways, let's go ahead and start talking about these categories. If you're new to the Shark Scale, we've got 6 different categories here to rank everything out of 100. We've got the characters, the story, the world, the music/OST, the entire soundtrack, the animation, and my overall enjoyment of the show. And then we add them all up, divide it by 6, get the average, and then place it on our list here. So let's start with the characters. Characters are good in the show. It's 12 episodes. I mean, it is very, very, very difficult to get a super high score on characters when there's only 12 episodes, because there's only so much depth you can go into, and the depth you do go into has to be on the main characters. So the side characters don't usually get a lot of love, which is sad because, especially in this show, there are a couple of side characters that I think would have been really interesting to get a more in-depth backstory on, but we don't have that luxury. So the characters that they do go into depth on, and you do get their backstory, and you do get, how they ended up where they are, it's really interesting. Ikoma, Biva, and Mume are all really intriguing characters, even though Biva, you don't really get to go back too far. You just get a little bit for him. But those characters are all super interesting. Mume especially has a lot of depth to her character, and Ikoma as well. So it was good. The characters were good. They weren't like, once again, it's not, with 12 episodes, it's hard to get super invested. If I'm comparing like Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress to Cyberpunk Edge Runners, which I also just watched, Cyberpunk Edgerunners was able to get a good amount of like character depth and development for a lot of different characters. Kabaneri was a little bit less in that field, I think. However, the main characters do definitely, the big three definitely carry this show hard, especially the main two characters. But since it's such a short show, I can't give it super high of a rating, but it is still good with what they could do with it. So we're going to go 81, low 80s. I do think it's above average. Like average would be like a 70, 75. I definitely think it's above that because, like I said, I was very invested in the main characters and the big characters. So 81 for the characters. Next up, we go on to story. Yeah, the story is very... Once again, it's only 12 episodes, so they had to start it and wrap it up pretty quickly. So it's paced pretty fast for the story, which I think actually works for this show. Sometimes it's Game of Thrones final season. It's bad to try to, have to rush through something like that. But I think they do a good job of getting enough depth and like reasoning and like explanation of kind of what's going on. For the most part, there's a couple of like plot holes, but it's overall a good job, and the story is really intriguing. It's something that you start off wondering kind of where it's gonna go, and then by like the middle of the show, you get introduced to some new main characters and some new twists. And it's a really fun story to be a part of, 100%. Like it's interesting. There's some twists, some turns. There's a lot of, well, not a lot, but there's a good amount of nuance as well to why everything's happening. And I think the whole idea of the fact that they're, once again, the post-apocalyptic type of story. Very similar to Attack on Titan, where humanity is fighting for its life against these unknown enemies that some people are, fighting for their life, and some people are trying to harness the energy of these unknown enemies. So it's definitely similar. It's a similar base structure to that kind of story. And then you also get the Darling and the Franxx part of a male-female duo where the female is kind of on the good side, kind of on the bad side, and it takes this guy to quote-unquote save her from turning into the evil version of herself. So it's fun. It's a fun dynamic. I've seen the story before. It's, like I said, it follows the same baseline structure, but it's done so uniquely and so interestingly, and it's such a good story that I think they did a fantastic job with this story. And once again, having it, fully start and fully end in 12 episodes, and you still get that kind of fulfilling experience watching it is really good. So I'm going to go more in the upper 80s this time. I don't think I'm going to crack the 90 on it, but 89 I think is a well-deserving. Next up, we go to The World, and this is going to be similar to the things I said before, where like The World is built like, I think it's just it's a modern, not modern, once again, post-apocalyptic type of world. But I find it super interesting that when I first read the title, Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress, you'd think, Iron Fortress is going to be this big fucking castle. It's surrounded with iron walls or something similar to Attack on Titan. But they do it in a different way, with the Iron Fortress being a train that they live on, essentially. And the train isn't just like, it's not just different for the sake of being different. It's different because, parts of the plot are genuinely focused and are affected by the fact that they are on a train, and the train is the primary way of moving from strong, like safe space to safe space. So it's a unique and interesting dynamic that I think they did a fantastic job with, because once again, there are multiple plot points that revolve around the fact they are on a giant metal train. So I think they did a great job with the world building, and once again, the enemies, you know, you don't get a ton of detail on kind of the where they came from and what their, you know, what's exactly how they came to be, which is a little bit frustrating, because it'd be fun to know the main backstory behind how it all started there. But I still think they did a great job with the world, and it was a super fun world to experience and be a part of. And I'm probably gonna give this a low 90s. I'll go 91 for the world. Like I said, it was just a great job of building this world in a way it's different from all the other ones that at least I've seen so far. So it was unique, it was well done, and especially considering, and this is something slightly important to take into account, but Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress is not a manga. This is an anime only show, or at least started as the anime before. I don't know if there's any manga that's been made, but I know for a fact that this was not based off of a manga. This was just created solely for anime. There was no already established world to go off of. It was just from scratch, and it was really good. So 91 for the world. Music and OST. This one's going to be kind of so the intro and outro. Well, the outro changed in like one or two episodes because of the ending track, but the intro, not a big fan of. I wasn't a big fan of the intro for this anime. It was very subpar, very similar to Cyberpunk Edgerunners, actually. This show reminded me of that a lot, because the intro was, I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't. But the soundtrack during fights, sometimes during the end of an episode, like right at the end when they're doing the final thing, leaving you on a cliffhanger, it was really, really good. And I mean, like, one of the better fight OSTs I've heard in a while, at least. It's up there. I think the soundtrack, not quite Cyberpunk Edgerunners level of soundtrack, but really, 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 really good. During a fight scene, you'd be getting excited because you hear the music coming, and it's just getting you amped up and ready to go. I'm going to double check what I gave the Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I gave it a 95. Okay, perfect. Because I think I was going to go somewhere around a 92. I'll go 91. I'll same as the world here. Once again, it's really good. The intro is just underwhelming, but everything else, it just adds a lot to the scene and makes it much more fun to watch. So 91 for that. Animation. This is where I get it. This is like one of the highlights of the show for me. There wasn't anything flashy like Demon Slayer. You know, you don't have all these insane special effects. You get a few really good ones, but it's not left and right special effects nonstop. But the animation style is super clean, super smooth, and the fight scenes are choreographed and animated so well. Just super fun fights to watch. You know, and like I said, it's very clean fight scenes. Mume, one of the main characters of the show, when she fights, it's this is gonna be cliche, poetry in motion. I mean, my God. And the last episode, there's some cool special effects. I mean, you think the main character's going, you think he's opening the 8th gate. He's about to turn into like fucking Might Guy fighting Madara. It was so sick. But overall, like I said, I can't give it like the benchmark of Demon Slayer, but I'm going to give it a very high score because I thought this was animated super well. One of my favorite for fight scenes. And once again, even just the smoothness of something like that clip that I showed earlier, and maybe again here, of that, just having the blade on the shoe and just the nice, clean, just, it was very fun and satisfying to watch. So for animations, I'm going to give this a 93, I think. I was thinking, I don't think I can go quite 95. If it was a little flashier, probably. But it's super, super smooth and enjoyable. So 93 for animations. And then overall enjoyment. I'm going to go pretty high here because from every single episode of this show, start to finish, I loved it. I wanted to keep watching more. I was like, yes, more, yes, more, yes. It like I said, had good story, good pacing, good action. It has the classic Darling in the Franxx thing that I love of a female protagonist that's, you don't really know where she is, if she's good, if she's bad, if she's both, whatever. And you got this the male protagonist that's along for that journey and is there every step of the way and is helping and doing all these things. Something about that kind of story just gets me. You guys know I love Darling in the Franxx. I very biased towards that anime, even though the story was dog shit at the end. But that kind of relationship between characters, I think, is amazing. So having that plus an Attack on Titan-esque story, it's not on the same level of Attack on Titan. It's not. There's just one season of good development versus like 4 seasons of insane development. Like, it's not the same, but that similar kind of story progression made this super fun for me to watch. And since it's so short, it's definitely one I might actually in the future end up watching again. So overall enjoyment for me, I'm going to give it a solid 91, I think. Is a very high score and a score that I think is well deserving for this show. I very highly recommend it because it's one that I don't hear a lot about, but man, it was a good watch. So we'll go ahead and get all of these added up. A lot of 91s here. 91, and that'll give us an 89.3 out of 100. Not sure where that's going to put us, but we'll find out. We'll cut, and then... Okay. 89.3. Probably tied with something. Oh, I'm sure it is, actually. 88.3. Oh, it's not, actually. It's just right above Kakegurui and right below Darwin's Game. Isn't that... Oh, I'm going to have to look this up after. Is Darwin's Game Season 2 supposed to come out anytime soon? I sure fucking hope so. Okay, anyway. Right here. Enter. Kabaneri. And erase that. Okay, let's double check. Once again, make sure... Yep, see... Everything else is kind of lined up. All right, nice. So what was that, 16th? 16th on the list. Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. It was, like I said, just a really good, fun watch. And I highly, highly recommend checking this one out if you haven't seen it, especially since it's such a short one. But that being said, that's it for this episode of Shark Scale. If you've watched this, let me know your thoughts down below because, like I said, I think it's just underrated. But anyways, appreciate you. This will be our last Shark Scale for a bit. I got to grind my way through Black Clover. We'll get there eventually. But hopefully you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you guys so much for the support as always. I love each and every one of your faces, and I will catch you all in the next video.